right, LinkedIn, here we are.
Yay, team!
Going live on LinkedIn with T. Scott
T. Scott Clendaniel, not Clendaniel.
Not
Yes.
Clendaniel, no.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about data science for mortals. So if you're tuning in, and if you're a mortal, and if you have questions on, on data science, please go ahead and ask them in the chat, and I will ask them to Scott, who knows everything. So,
If you're immortal, no questions accepted.
Exactly. For those of you who do not know Scott, well, Scott will give his own introduction. Go ahead, Scott. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Scott Clendaniel. I am currently Chief Data Scientist for Legg Mason. I've been in the field for 34 years now and used to do consulting and have done work in financial services for a very long time.
How long?
1986.
1986. All right, great.
Before you were born.
Let's not disclose it. I'm not sure one way or another.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Anyways.
Moving right along.
So what are you working on now? Where are you?
I'm currently working on a program to help other Legg Mason employees learn about data science. So we just did a program for Introduction to Data Science and Artificial Intelligence for 200 employees.
Okay.
And then we loaded it on YouTube so that folks outside the organization could take advantage of it as well.
And how many employees do you guys have in total? Just trying to get a sense of what percentage of people.
It was about 1 in 6 employees. We have about 1,100 staff.
Okay. Well, so how did you guys choose the 200? Are they working closely
No,
with
we
data,
opened
or?
up to the entire organization and just asked who wants to participate, and they all volunteered, which is kind of cool.
All right. We have a lot of hi Scotts here. Hi Scott. I guess
Hello.
you're famous on LinkedIn.
Hi. I can pretend to be famous on LinkedIn. That'd be great.
All right, so we do have questions prepared where I'm going to interview Scott, but if you have specific questions, then please go ahead and type those in.
Great.
I'm going to get started with what I think the audience cares about.
Money.
If the question is, well, no, who needs money?
Who
Nobody
needs
needs
money?
money.
Sorry.
No, happiness. We're going to talk about the meaning of life.
Absolutely.
But before that,
okay.
we'll talk about how does somebody break into data science?
I think the best way to break into data science is to work in any capacity with data. So if you have a job currently that involves even reporting, to get involved in that first. And I would suggest that folks not try and go out and say, I'm going to take 2 years off and I'm just going to do a master's degree and I'm going to jump into the program. You're going to waste a lot of time and money and effort, and then I don't think it's going to work really well. So if you can migrate from your current job, I think that's a better way to go.
So let's say somebody's at their current job, as your example, reporting. Should they take a Coursera or a Springboard or something like that? Is that enough to get them into a data science position?
Where I've seen people have the most success is to find out within their current organization what their best path over is and take it in smaller steps. That's where I've seen people have the most success. Where I've seen people get into trouble is they go out and, as I said, they take time off from work and they do a full certificate program or a master's degree program, and that doesn't work out too well.
Right.
As opposed to like a certification program, there's some out there for free. If your current organization values that, you're in good shape. If your current organization does not value that, it's not going to work out so well. So it's best to check with your current boss usually and figure out what your organization is interested in. Do you have tuition reimbursement? Do you have a program that will allow you to do?
What if you don't have a job?
If you don't have a job, then you don't have to worry about quitting the current job. That's the good news. I think the best way to start is with some of the free programs.
Yeah.
Like the Coursera with Andrew Ng as a starting point, and then move more that direction.
Okay.
I would also suggest that people join their local groups, their local data science
Like
or
meetups
AI
and
groups,
stuff?
like meetups,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because that's really how you're going to find an opportunity, I think, much more so than, oh, I'm just going to apply to a whole bunch of jobs on LinkedIn and hope for the best. I have not seen that work out very well.
Yeah, me neither. All right, great. So Shirad has a question.
Yes.
What is the basic profile for a beginner in data science? What do they look like?
It's a wide group of folks. In more recent years, folks with a developer background, there have been a lot of folks from that have made a successful transition. What I think works best is if you have sort of a natural curiosity, you're interested in solving problems for the organization, you have some background in working with computers, not necessarily a computer science degree, that's usually the best starting point.
Okay, all right. Alok is asking to explain more about career opposites. I've not heard of career opposites.
I don't know career opposites. I must have said something wrong.
No.
I've already messed up the entire show, folks. I was doing my best.
Alok, if you can elaborate, I don't know if we're maybe just are not familiar with the term career opposites.
Sorry about that.
All right. Scott from
Yes.
AJ. What is the best way to find features in linear regression problems? And how to interpret the model with the most effective way?
I actually have I think a relatively good answer for that is non-traditional, and that is to start with, do a decision tree first.
Okay.
And here's why. Because in a decision tree, it's automatically going to solve a lot of problems for you, and it's going to automatically eliminate highly collinear inputs. So you don't need to worry about what the actual tree says, but look for which inputs ended up in the tree. Take those inputs from the tree and use those for your linear regression.
All right. If you have more questions on that, then follow up with Scott. he answers,
And he might even provide an answer. You never know.
He just might. Actually, he's promised to answer every question that comes in forever. He did not promise.
I can never leave this building, folks. I am here forever.
Oh, no, they'll find you on LinkedIn.
Oh,
so.
there you go. Okay, that's fair.
All right. Sabyasachi is asking, can you talk about how to deal with feature engineering, sort of from your experience, what hierarchy of methods you found useful, and how can one deal with encoding a large, like million or more, number of categorical variables?
Wow. You're probably going to have to use something like support vector machines, which can allow for very sparse data sets, because if you've got 1 million inputs, you're probably going to have a lot of null values in there, and most algorithms aren't going to handle that terribly well. Support vector machines, however, one of their claims to fame is actually being able to handle a ridiculous number of inputs and still come up with a coherent model at the end. So that is probably your best option for that. You may want to be careful. Some folks have tried to do this with problems in like tracking paths through a website. And what they find is there aren't a whole lot of patterns there to be found. So even if you have a ton of inputs, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're good patterns that are going to be particularly helpful for you. So it would depend on the type of problem you're solving, but SVMs would be my starting point for that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This question is, well, let's just play it on.
Uh-oh.
All right. Nurslan asks, what do you write in an email to a recruiter? So I'm assuming he wants a job as a data scientist.
Yep.
And wants to contact a recruiter about it.
Yep.
Any tips on what to put in that email?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to understand what the job of a recruiter is. It isn't to go help a lot of people find jobs, unfortunately. They're given an assignment from their current employer to say, I need somebody who fits this type of role.
Mm-hmm.
So their job is, I've got an inventory of jobs and no people to assign them. I've got to match it. So if you're going to write an email to a recruiter, a generic out of the blue email probably isn't going to work really well. So what you need to look for are like occasions to do like an open house, because a lot of companies will do that, or they'll have combined open houses. They'll visit campuses a lot of times, and they will also usually take guests from off campus to those events so you can get more information. You can ask for an informational interview. A lot of recruiters don't offer them because they're kind of time consuming. You're usually better off finding a hiring manager and talking to them and saying what types of things you look for. Also, look up the LinkedIn profiles of people who have recently, so you get an announcement, this person or that person just got a job at XYZ company. Look at their profile and see what really helped them, and that'll give you a better idea of what that particular company's looking for or what could be successful for them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You can congratulate them and get them on the phone and see, hey,
Absolutely.
how did you get this job? Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So you've worked in data science for a while now.
Yes, I have.
What are you kind of seeing in industry, like any skill gaps that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. The great news is that the field opened up a lot to a lot of people with developer backgrounds as opposed to pure data science backgrounds. And that's great. The challenge is that people who have come in from that background, if you only look at this as a software development project, that doesn't tend to work out so well either. So The skill gaps that I see is people haven't really defined what the organizational objective is.
Okay.
Analytics are tools.
Yeah.
And data science is a set of tools and practices. It isn't an end unto itself. So people understanding exactly how's the model going to be used,
Right.
what type of constraints do you have, how fast do you need this, how much budget do they have, do they have an infrastructure to actually put the model in place? You need to ask those questions on the front end.
Right.
The one thing that I would suggest people avoid is like in really bad reality TV shows, they have the reveal at the end.
Yeah.
And they do lots of build up, and you're not allowed to see the person, and they're going to go get plastic surgery or a new dress or a new suit or whatever. And then at the end they go, ta-da, isn't this wonderful? It's a really bad idea. And the reason why is it often doesn't meet the needs of the person.
I was going to say, yeah, that ta-da is probably, they're like, okay,
Yeah.
so what? Who cares?
Yeah. So understanding, so the gap of understanding what the real problem to be solved is
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah, J.T. Costin gave a really cool example of that. He said there was this really senior data scientist who was hired to analyze this programming, some kind of game, right? Some kind of game that was programmed. So she spent, I guess, weeks or months analyzing something, and she comes back with this finding, like this one character of a game can beat all levels like in 10 minutes, and they're like, yeah, we knew that. We built her to do that. Like that was on purpose.
We wrote the game.
Yes.
Yes, we understood that part.
So, yeah, understand what you're looking for, exactly.
Stephen Covey had a great story from years and years ago. This was a gentleman who wrote 7 Habits for Highly Effective People.
Oh, yeah, I read that.
And he talks about a group of people who are trying to build a business to track new paths through the jungle. And they've got a group of people who are building the machetes, and they've got a group of people who sharpen the machetes, and then they've got a group of people who are doing like the GPS. The leader is the person who goes up the ladder and shouts down, "Wrong jungle!" So a lot of people miss that part.
Yeah.
You need that person in data science.
Yep. All right, you ready for your next one?
I'm ready.
We have a lot of questions for
Oh
this.
dear.
Seriously, more than
I hope we
usual.
have a lot of answers too.
I think so far, yes.
Okay.
People are responding that you're actually, you're adding value, so this is great.
Awesome! Woohoo! Who knew?
So Divyang Jane says, hi.
Yes.
Hi. Someone at the beginning stage doesn't know much coding in Python or R.
Yes.
How can they pursue data science and changing into the data science world?
I have a suggestion for you, believe it or not.
Yes.
I do not have a coding background. I am not a very good developer. I
Oh.
am not particularly strong in R, Python, or those types of languages. However, there are alternatives. For example, if you download Anaconda, one of the free packages that comes with that is Orange Data Mining.
Yeah.
If you have a background in more sort of a drag and drop or GUI, it's a fantastic way to sort of get your feet wet
Okay.
and sort of learn the process and the techniques of the steps you need to take. Like, this is what you do with the data, this is how you do the transformations, those type of things. These are different algorithms you can test. It's a fantastic way to learn the process first.
Uh-huh.
If you understand the process, the rest becomes more of a syntax thing, and it's much easier to understand. If you start off and you don't have any developer background and you're like, I'm going to learn how to become a data scientist because I can memorize everything about Python,
Right.
this is going to be painful.
Okay. But while we're on this topic of
Yes.
tools, right? R versus Python. So there's been some debates going on, R versus Python,
Or Rye versus iPhone.
R versus Python. Yes, exactly. So is it R, is it Python, or it doesn't matter? What are you going with?
Okay,
Break
there are
the
two
tie.
pieces. There are two pieces to this question. The first answer is it doesn't matter. What does matter
Wait,
is
what doesn't matter? The tools?
the tools, whether it's R or Python. You need to learn how to solve the problem.
Well, you need to know what the problem is, right?
You need to know what the problem is.
Step one.
That's
Identify
very good. You
problem.
need to understand the data. R versus Python, if you're trying to figure out where the industry is going, I think the industry is leaning more towards Python for a lot of reasons we can talk about later. However, they're just tools. It's a set of syntax. Picking R versus Python. If R is a better solution and your current client or your current employer is good with R,
Yeah.
stop worrying about that. Use R. If Python is the case for you, there are also tools that don't primarily use R or Python. SPSS, the old SAS Enterprise Miner, tools like that. Don't use any of the above. Figure out the problem you need to solve, and if you're only going to pick a language because it's most popular, probably more popular would be Python. but it doesn't matter in terms of solving the problem.
Right. And I guess a reason to choose the more popular languages because maybe hiring managers or recruiters would be more familiar with it, or maybe there's a bigger support network. If you have a question, they can help. But okay, so the answer
they're
is
both
doesn't
great
matter.
languages.
All right. Ashwin asks, how good should someone be at programming before they appear for a data science interview? I'm assuming this is a junior level data science interview.
Pretty capable, especially if you're going to if you're going to pick an organization that does a lot of application work, you need to be pretty strong in it. Here's what I'm going to suggest. Spend your time looking at good examples in GitHub or certification programs. Focus on solving the problem and learn the language to fit those needs and learn it that way.
Okay.
I find it's going to be much easier. If you just go out and try and learn everything about Python or R or any other language, it's hard, it's slow, and it's tedious. You'll pick up how to solve the problem to get into that first job faster if you use existing examples.
Okay, got it. More questions. Janish asks,
Yes.
what do you suggest for a computer science student who's looking to get into a career in data science?
Oh, well, you're probably in pretty good shape. Again, some of the suggestions, and forgive me because some of this information is going to be the same answer for multiple questions. I apologize. But I would definitely, if you are already studying computer science, you're obviously going to take some data science courses. But please go to the meetups, go to the types of groups. Also, volunteer. If any of you are familiar with Athletics, which is a program that was created by Dr. Beverly Wright and team in Atlanta, they now have a group of 800 data scientists who get together to work on problems for the public good, like the opioid crisis, human trafficking, those type things, or which I think is a much better answer than just doing like Kaggle. I mean, Kaggle's great, but here's a way where you can interact with other people live and you're actually solving a problem towards a charitable aim. So you're able to help out and learn at the same time.
Yeah, why don't you talk more about athletics for those who are not familiar with it?
Sure. The city of Atlanta, where I was honored to be able to go visit a couple months ago and speak at a conference down there. Athletics actually takes on they've only been around for about a year, and their meetup has over 800 folks, which I haven't really heard of.
Good.
I mean, that's
really
a lot. From what I understand, and I could have this wrong, but they have actually coordinated with organizations like the FBI. So in cases of human trafficking, they have interacted with them to try and come up with ways to help identify patterns in data that would help stop human trafficking. I mean, I don't think you're really going to have a project in your career that's going to mean more than those types of things. They currently have a big focus on the opioid crisis, on how to look at the existing opioid data set to help diagnose where the problems are most intense and how to help solve them. So that's a way where you can meet a lot of people, you can work towards a public good, and you're learning data science at the same time. So
and these are volunteers, right?
These are all volunteers. No one gets paid in that organization. They all
so
do
find
a
a place to volunteer.
Absolutely.
All right, great. So you mentioned that your background is in financial services.
Yes.
Are there any kind of obstacles that you face that are, I guess, nuances specific to the financial services industry in the data space?
Absolutely. I happen to be sitting next to someone who has a background in a lot of risk and compliance. Come back here. So the CATE is a great resource to learn about risk management and financial services. However, one of the really important things is that the regulation in financial services for compliance and risk is extremely tight. So one of the things they focus on, for example, is interpretability of the models is extremely important, and it's actually in the regulation in terms of whether you can use a scorecard type of approach or a different type of model. So interpretability became a big thing that I learned out of working with financial services. The other thing is problems like imbalanced data sets, like in fraud detection, you might have 0.1% fraud. So a model, if you just take the data raw and put it into the model, it's going to say, hey, I've got a 99.9% successful solution. There is no fraud. I'm going to determine that the transaction. And from the model's perspective, that makes complete sense. You've got to be able to work with data sampling so you have more of a 50-50 split. So you have to sample like all the fraud and just a subsample of the non-fraud. So it's a more So it's more closely resembles a 50-50 balance. So the model can't arbitrarily say, oh, nothing's fraud.
No fraud, right. We actually have a question that came in that's like a banking question.
Oh,
Ready?
okay, I can try.
All right. What is the best way to predict bank customer churn prior to closure? What are best techniques and most likely predictors?
Bank churn is particularly problematic because there aren't necessarily a whole bunch of signs ahead of time. One of the things you're going to want to look at, however, it doesn't tend to be person comes in one day and closes all their account. What tends to happen more often is what they call silent attrition, where the person still has all the accounts, but they've just stopped using them. So you want to be able to look at different windows of time, like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months.
Right.
When you see that trend line, they've always had, $3,000 worth of activity over every 3 months for the past 3 periods, and suddenly drops down to a couple hundred. That's what's going to be your indicator, much more than expecting someone just to walk into the office and close their accounts one day.
Yeah, okay. All right, Trip Parker. What is the most common complaint that hiring managers have about finding data science analytics talent, aside from too few people?
Part of the problem is I think a lot of hiring managers have completely unrealistic expectations. I read an article about this a couple months ago that made me laugh, that was saying, all right, so you want to have somebody who's got X number of years in Python and X number of years in statistics and X number of years in data science and this many years in Python. I said, how old are you expecting these people to be?
They should be 20 years old too, right?
Exactly. And, they've got 30 years of experience and they just graduated school.
Yes.
So that is one of the biggest complaints I hear. Also, that they don't have the domain knowledge, which is difficult to get until you've actually had the position.
Yeah.
So a strong suggestion from me is that organizations take more time to take internal talent and bring them up to speed in data science than it is to just take people from completely the outside who don't have any experience. Also, they need to build their pipelines for giving opportunities for internships for folks so that they can learn as they go.
Okay, cool. So this is more of an announcement than a question from Joseph, so you can read it. So Joseph says that you can ask to be a member of the International Association of Data Quality, Governance, and Analytics. I'm guessing this is a group on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes. It's just being created to help students and working professionals learn more about data issues. So for anyone who wants to join that group, go for it.
Excellent. Thanks for the suggestion.
All right. Fad asks, how do you describe a perfect data scientist? Just tell them about yourself. Here's a picture.
Just read my link. No. Actually, don't do that, because that would not be an example of a perfect data scientist by a long shot. There is no such thing. I think you need a blend of someone who has domain expertise in the problem they're trying to solve, natural curiosity, some background and some experience in data, and a willingness to learn and adapt. The last component, I think, is people skills, which is sometimes glossed over, but is really, really important.
Like collaboration or communication? What do you mean by people skills?
Yes. Collaboration, definitely, but communication. One of the things that particularly irritates me about our own field is there is a small group of people who just want to be able to look at data and do equations and do problems for the sake of doing equations and doing problems. You're there to help solve a real organizational issue. And you use your analytics to get towards that goal.
Yeah.
Doing analytics for the sake of analytics, you might as well just be saying, I really enjoy playing the guitar, and I want to sit on my cubicle and play my guitar and get paid for that, and I don't really care about whether the organizational problem gets solved or not. It's the same problem. You need to help people.
Yeah, and I heard that could be more of an issue coming from like somebody who spends even more time in academia, like a PhD or something, because they get rewarded for, solving the most complex problem, using the most complex formula, when in the business, they just want you to do it. Do it today, and do it quickly, and make it kind of accurate.
And in many ways, organizations don't care how you solve the problem, as long as it's a reliable answer.
What tool you're using, that's like,
they don't want to know.
Build my house. I don't care how you build it. Just do it. So you mentioned that learning like the domain or industry knowledge is hard, and learning data science is hard. Now,
it's all hard.
So it's all hard.
It's all hard.
But you also spoke about the citizen data scientist at Legg Mason. Now, what are your thoughts on, is it easier to train a data scientist in the domain knowledge, or is it easier to take somebody in the business and teach them some data science?
I think it's easier to take people in the business and teach them some data science. You can do it either way. The challenge is if you're not willing to do all the pieces, meaning you're not willing to learn the domain and learn how to solve the problem, you're not in a good starting spot. So there has to be some natural curiosity and some willingness to learn and some willingness to, as dorky as this sounds, a genuine interest in helping people solve problems will get you a really long way, because the motivation for learning the data science, for learning the domain expertise, for learning how to communicate, all for me stems from that.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so Gargi Gupta. Since there's so much competition and it's increasing because this is like the hottest job ever, you know, how can a new student survive in this field? So how can they differentiate themselves? I know you spoke a little bit about this, about meetups and kind of continue to learn, but is there anything else they can do to stand out more?
I think one of the things to do is in your own organization is go to the people who have the data and ask what type of problems they're facing.
Student.
Good point. Important correction. Because a student then wouldn't be in the organization.
Well, they can go to their school.
They can absolutely go to their
school. Gives you some
and
data
also,
to play
a
with,
lot of professors do consulting on the side.
Yeah.
So they can go to their existing teachers and say,
your
what type?
Professor, right?
Absolutely.
They always like free labor, right?
Yeah.
Yes, free labor.
Yes, they
work
do.
For Scott. Scott's hiring, right?
Don't I wish?
Oh, all right.
If I had jobs, I would offer them to you, but no.
All right, so we spoke about kind of identifying the problem.
Yep.
In some cases, the business and the technical folks, they can't really communicate too well, right? How do you get the clients to become clear on their goals and their objectives so then the data scientists know what they're looking for? What are they solving?
And I think that lots of people are well-intentioned in terms of identifying what's important, but I have found a couple of tricks that have been helpful. Tricks.
Do tell.
One of the things I used to do out of desperation to get a clear answer as to what's most important was I used to go to people and so I would come to Kate and I would say, Kate, what would get you a bonus this year? Now Kate, being a very polite person, would probably say, well, you know, it's based on organizational objectives and it's this and it's that and everything else. However, if I went to Kate and said, what do you think would get your boss a big bonus this year? In many cases, people in Kate's role would say, oh my goodness, let me tell you, they're worried about this and they're worried about that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened last year during, you know, performance review time or bonus time or whatever it is.
Right.
And suddenly you get this wealth of information of what's really driving people's behavior. And the reason why that's helpful isn't that you're necessarily going to get that person a bonus, but it forces them to sort of focus on what really and truly is driving a lot of decisions. And it gives you insights to help them craft what their goal for a specific project is, if you know what the big goal is.
Yeah, I think even in any field, really, that should be a question you ask is what will get my boss the bonus? Because
I heard
if they're happy, you're happy, usually, unless your boss isn't, you know.
I heard somebody say a long time ago that everyone in the world has exactly the same job description. Make their boss look good, which
some people don't understand that.
Some people don't understand that, and I don't think it's 100% true, but it's helpful. You need to help your boss get to where your boss wants to be.
Yes. All right, you ready for Princey? Princey Singh.
Okay.
Any sources to learn advanced level Python for machine learning, deep learning? Most of the websites only offer beginner level courses. How can someone learn these skills to get to the advanced level without working under a company or studying with the Ivy League universities? What do they do?
Not to sound cheesy, but try LinkedIn Learning, because there are a lot of advanced programs that are available.
LinkedIn, are you listening?
LinkedIn, are you listening? We're promoting LinkedIn Learning, for heaven's sake. As a matter of fact, Legg Mason made a decision, and this is not a plug for Legg Mason, to offer, of course not, to offer a lot of LinkedIn Learning courses for internal employees so they could advance their careers and make those sort of transitions. But that would be a great opportunity as a starting point. I think you're going to find a lot of organizations like Data Camp have wonderful courses for the introduction.
For the beginners, right?
Right, because you're just trying to break in.
For beginners, yep.
The advanced stuff is going to be more oriented to somebody that has a platform with a lot of depth to it, and also there's a lot of online certifications in advanced stuff. The Hopkins program is one, Stanford has one.
Those are paid, right?
Those are paid. Yeah, in terms of free, that advanced and free and online is a...
Well, if you know what you're searching for,
Good
Google can help you. It won't
What's a
be,
Google?
Yes, anyways, I'll introduce you to Google after this.
Thank
It's
you.
My friend Google.
Your friend Google. Awesome.
She knows everything. It's a woman.
I have no doubt.
All right, Ashish Tiwari, how do you crack data science interviews? As some companies want natural language processing, some want image processing, and some want a person who writes SQL queries. How could they expect us to be an expert in everything? Hashtag frustrating.
I'm stealing that hashtag, by the way, as of this broadcast.
For every post?
For every post. Frustrating. Old and cranky would be mine. You can't expect to do everything perfectly well. If you're in a situation where you are being interviewed for a position and they're expecting you to know everything about SQL and the domain and all those techniques and language processing, you're in the wrong interview.
No, he's saying different companies want different things.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's say 5 companies, they all, one wants NLP, one image processing. How do you know what to learn?
Well, I think I'll begin with the end in mind. There you go. You got to know where you want to be and what you want to be doing. If you want to just be doing, if you want to be hired, yeah, that would be good.
That's the goal.
I mean, what excites you about data science? What motivates you? What do you like to read about? What type of problems do you like to understand? Start with that. The other thing you can do is take a list of 10 LinkedIn positions that you would want. Don't worry about whether you qualify for them or the geography or all those type of things. Just take 10 descriptions. Take the bullet points of the requirements out.
Yeah.
Post them in like Excel and see the ones that come up the most often. Those are the ones are probably the ones you want to start with. But look for the jobs that excite you, that are like, wow, I would really like to have this first, rather than I'm going to study everything so I can qualify for any position. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. I remember back in college, they told us when you already have a job and you're thinking about your next step, like where do you want to be 5-10 years from now, Google those job descriptions.
Yes.
If you know what Google is. And then
I heard she's really smart.
And then
She knows Google.
I know Google, yes. I know LinkedIn, I know Google. It's like, it's crazy. Yeah, but you look at the job description and then you basically work towards that. So that's a good advice. All right, here comes the fun stuff. So,
Okay.
I mean, we were having fun all along for hours, actually.
It's a fun show. What can we say?
All right, some people have the 4-letter words that they talk about.
Yes.
You have 2 5-letter words.
2 5-letter words.
Can you tell us the story about your 2 5-letter words? You've been
Yes.
quoted on this before, so I'd love to hear about this.
There are a lot of folks, because of all the hype in artificial intelligence, who have completely unrealistic expectations.
Like what?
And they're going to put data in the front end. Miracles are going to occur out the back end. And they're going to, just dump all this data into this magic algorithm, and they're going to know everything they need to know about the business without even defining a dependent variable. If you see software like this, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. And here's the 2 5-letter words. Model and magic are both 5-letter words that begin with the letter M, but they're not the same thing. You need to make sure that your internal, your external client knows what can happen.
Wait, there's a difference?
I've heard.
Really?
Yeah.
What is magic?
The stuff I can't do.
Okay. And what's a model?
Stuff that sometimes I can do.
All right. We have some people chiming in. So Anna
Yes.
also posts quite a bit on LinkedIn.
Hi, Anna.
She's recommending that people do a T-shape. So it's basically you first build a top line and then you specialize into one, like NLP
So you have a lot
or
of
image
depth in
processing.
this, yep.
Exactly. Go broad and then you find a focus area. And I guess you can find the focus area by looking at job descriptions or applying to jobs.
And there was and I don't remember the name of the book, but there was a very famous management book about 10 years ago that talked about the T-shaped manager, and I can't remember what the name was.
I don't remember it either, but there was a T-shape. There was another one too.
Yeah.
I think it was the I. Maybe it was the I, because it's just focused.
Yep.
No T, yeah. She also says that Stanford has online materials that are free. So
Yes.
check that out. I'm sure.
Free and I go way back. Always start with free.
So we spoke a bit about domains, and Emmanuel was asking, what are the best domains in data science?
Think about industries that, first of all, have a lot of data available. So, for example, organizations with a big web presence, because they're going to have tons of data to be able to work with. So anything with a high web concentration would be a good domain to start with. I'll tell you one that I think is getting a lot more play than there are actual positions, and that's autonomous vehicles. There are lots of companies that have gone into that space, but it's very difficult for a lot of them to make money.
Okay.
And it also requires a very complex set of skills with very advanced algorithms. So that isn't the place that I would start first. But other organizations that have, or industries that have a lot of data, financial services would be one.
Yeah.
Those would be the ones that I would be starting with in terms of.
So those are the ones, well, I was just going to ask a different question, because I don't think there is a domain that you shouldn't go into. I think you can pick any, really, because I think data science can help. I mean, healthcare is just like anywhere.
Yep.
And I think avoiding the big ones that you just spoke about might decrease competition if you're really trying to get hired quickly. And you don't need big data to do data science, right? You can leverage small data.
Itty bitty data is bad, but small data is okay.
Itty bitty data. I was gonna say baby data.
Baby data?
Baby data is good too.
Okay.
All right. And Jet Li is watching from Liberia. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, Liberia.
So Kunal says that e-commerce, social media, and airlines are the best domains. Other people are saying marketing is the best domain because that's his industry. So sometimes you're just working in a field like the citizen data scientist, right? You're, let's say, working at a bank, and you decide to do data science. You're probably going to favor financial services or banking because that's the area you understand.
Yep.
So usually if you're working somewhere else and you already understand a domain, then just, it's easier to stay in that domain because you know the issues.
Yeah, marketing is a function. I did a lot of models for marketing projects in the past.
Like what? Tell us about it.
Trying to predict who's going to respond to a given offer. Trying to do a cross-sell project to identify the appropriate product at the appropriate time through the appropriate channel for your given target base. Predicting churn. Those types of projects had been around for a really long time, long before we had the advent of tools like deep learning. And I mean, you look at RFM models, recency, frequency, monetary value, that was launched by Sears in the 50s.
Yeah.
So, but it was a marketing function.
All right. So any area is good, guys. Just go for it. All right, Brij Nanda. What is the best tool for handling big data? Your favorite, big data. Is Spark better than Python?
Scala is probably going to scale the best, which is a spinoff of Spark. Python, I love Python, but Python has some significant limitations for scaling. For example, if you use pandas, one of the things that pandas tries to do is to get all the data into memory at the same time.
Okay.
So it's more difficult to be able to scale. Spark is better at it, Scala is better still. But again, remember what we talked about earlier, there is no perfect tool. If you have the world's best paintbrush, but you need to be screwing screws into a door frame, it doesn't matter how good the paintbrush is, it's the wrong tool for the job. You gotta make sure that you're matching those things up.
Right, that makes sense. So you can't build things with a paintbrush?
I can't do much of anything with a paintbrush, so I'm probably a bad example, but yes, door.
Yeah. All right, another question from Emmanuel. What are the available industrial certifications for data scientists?
I am probably not the best person to speak on this topic. One of the challenges is that we used to have no certifications, and now we have certifications everywhere.
Yeah.
And I do not have enough expertise to be able to speak on which is the best, so I apologize.
Yeah, certifications I think are good if you're trying to stand out. If you already have a job, it could probably help you stay in touch with what's happening, kind of keep you learning, but for the most part, I think people value experience over
Absolutely.
Certification.
And let's all be secretly honest. Just
secretly honest? We're going live.
secretly
Wait, did you know
honest.
this is live?
What? People are watching this?
Some people, yes. They might be dropping now. I
Yeah,
see
they're
them
dropping now.
They're dropping now.
The
yeah.
numbers just. What hiring managers really want is someone who has done exactly the same job that they're hiring for.
For less money.
For less money for 30 years at their largest competitor.
That was perfect. That was perfect, honestly.
That isn't realistic, but that's really what they want. So
Yeah.
the problem is lots of people are looking for things that they can't find, and then it all becomes trade-offs, and what trade-offs are they able to make? Also, a lot of people pick on human resources folks. A lot of times it isn't their fault. They are given a stack of requirements that they have to go out and find people for.
And they usually don't understand what those
And they
are,
don't
right?
understand what the requirements are, and the hiring managers get mad when the HR person comes in and says, can you really help walk me through exactly what you need? And they're like, no, I just need this person. I need them to start immediately. And then the HR person is caught in a terrible bind. I mean, 5 years ago, it used to be the same 3 requirements. You had to be able to do Hadoop. Was like in every single job description, and you had to be able to use MapReduce, Pig, and Hive. Mm-hmm. And you would talk to the person on the phone. It's like, do you really use Hive? I have no idea what that is. I was just told to put in, and everyone was copying everyone else's job description because no one gave them a straight answer. So it isn't always their fault.
So you mentioned all these tools. How has that changed now?
I think it's a lot better. I don't see nearly as much Hadoop in the ads, and I think that people have gotten better at posting the type of tools that are closer to the job that they're actually going to be doing, which is really helpful for all of us because we also know what to, answer the question. You can't put everything on a resume, so you need to know what they're after.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten better in terms of identifying what they want and like how much scikit-learn, how much NumPy, how much those things. I think that's gotten better. It still has a long way to go.
All right, I have a question. Tell me what percentage. So pick a number.
Okay.
Think of a number, 1 through 100. No, what percentage?
7.
Let's say no. 7 is probably too low for my question.
Okay, sorry.
So here's a job description. It has all these requirements and blah 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 tools, and so this is what you need to know before a person applies to that specific job. What percentage of skills do you think they should have before applying? Because you're rarely going to have 100% of the skills of that job. So what do you think is fair?
40%.
You should have 40% of those skills.
I think you should have 40% of those skills. I will say something that I saw in an article about 6 months ago, which is very concerning, about how few women are hired appropriately in technology. It's horrible. And they said that one of the concerns that many women had was women, when they look at the job description, tend to think I need to have like 90% of the skills. Mm-hmm. And more guys are like, hey, what the heck, I'm just going to send a resume in. So what has happened is there is sort of a cultural bias in terms of the people who are applying.
Yeah.
So I think to everyone, if you have about 40% of the skills, I would definitely give it a shot. The other thing that I've actually had success with a lot, and it's going to become terrible because everyone's going to do this and it's not going to work anymore, but I would actually send a note to the hiring manager and say, hey, could you take 30 seconds and look at my background? I've got this and this, but I don't have that and that. Is it still worth applying? Mm-hmm. If they don't answer, you're no worse off. If they write back and say, don't apply, then don't waste your time. But sometimes they'll say, yeah, give it a shot, or you have a really interesting background, it's worth it. Or the best of all possibilities, we actually have this other position that's coming open in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That looks
that you
like
might
this.
be a better fit for. Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend who calls it FTA. It's free to ask.
Yeah, that's true.
There's so many things you can get out of life just by asking. So
one suggestion I am going to ask of a lot of people, and I'm sure you get this more than I do, but people say, I really want to get into data science. Can you please help me? And then you write back and you say,
I get a couple of those a day, yeah.
You get a couple of those a day. And you write back to the person and say, okay, how can I help? Be my mentor. Okay, what would you like mentorship in? They have no idea and they never write back.
Yeah, it's free to ask, but know what you're asking for.
Yeah.
That's another point. There's an interesting comment here from Vegan A's. All right.
Okay.
So he says, I fell for all of that. I had to learn Hadoop for a project that it had zero value for, just because it was trending and the boss thought it might help. So
Yes. Yep.
so you're spot on there. And somebody's asking, what's Hadoop? What's Hadoop anyways?
That is the right question.
All right, please share the link of that article. I'd like to go through it. Did you
Which?
talk about an article?
I've talked about many articles.
You just talked about an article 6 months ago.
Yes, I'll try and find it and post it. As soon as I play the video and remember what the heck I said. Yes, I
You
will be
literally
happy to
just
do
said
it.
6 months ago. I read an article.
I've breathed since then, so whatever the brain content is just
So I think this
left.
is the most fun session I've ever had, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
I've never laughed this much.
Is anyone getting anything out of this, by the way? Is this helping anyone, or are
think
you all
it is.
like,
We
oh,
have-
please stop?
Over 300 people on, and they're not leaving, so I think they're having fun.
Awesome.
All right, Brishnanda asks, what's the best way of storytelling? You know, I wanted to talk to you about that. Keeping it short and simple, or how do you, and storytelling in the, not to your grandchildren or something, not like putting someone to bed, short and simple, go to bed. But in data science.
There are going to be HR complaints all over the place. All right, so in terms of storytelling, well, first of all, I hate to be a broken record here, but you need to understand what the problem is, because that's going to be the setup. That's the challenge that the hero of the story has to overcome. So when you're trying to create the story, here's the situation, here's the nutshell of what the problem is, here's the things we looked at.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion when you're presenting the results, however, in terms of the storytelling.
Yeah.
You always do an executive summary, exactly one slide. No more than one slide.
Wait. Do you need a slide?
No.
All right.
I have to use a slide because it keeps me organized, to be
I
honest
think
with
in
you.
slides, from my consulting background, we did everything in slides. Like,
Yeah.
I think in slides, literally. So.
Imagine what happens if the fire alarm goes off 2 minutes into your presentation, and
Okay.
you can't get the same group of and you can't get the same group of executives back together for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to know anything more than when they arrived? If your answer is no, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, the whole thing about the reveal at the end is a bad idea.
Yeah, keep them in the loop the whole time, right?
And make the most important point or 2 points on that first slide in the executive summary. Then is the time to walk them through the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is, especially with executives who have very little time on their hands, their mind is in 1,000 different places. They're trying to deal with all sorts of problems and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And they're waiting to find out what the reveal is. And a lot of times they don't hear anything you say until you tell them
So start with
the
that.
end of the story. So unfortunately, you have to start with the last page of the book.
Right.
And then you can go through the story.
So when you're going through the story, should we talk about p-values and
I hope not. Consider your audience. Who are you telling the story to?
business? The
If
business.
don't do that. So
Why not?
p-values, or what is the formula for standard deviation, or
Yeah, start with that, right? A formula for standard
Oh dear
deviation.
God, no. Get to the point. Think about it from their point of view. They have asked you to help them solve a problem.
Yeah, but
So
you've
what's
done
the
all
answer?
this work and you want to show them. I think that's kind of what's happening.
Appendix. I want everyone to repeat with me. Appendix. When in doubt, put it in the appendix. It is not that you can't include it, but you don't want it to block them understanding what the main point is.
Yeah. All right, this is an interesting one. You ready?
Okay.
Chintan Kumar asks, would you mind sharing your experience of failure in a data science project? Not failure in general, just data science. Please limit
Because we
your
don't
questions.
have that much time to be able to cover all of Scott's
Just
failures.
one.
Just
Just one,
one.
yeah.
Oh, geez, limit to one. Yes. I was actually working on a marketing project trying to figure out who was going to respond to a direct mail solicitation
Okay.
back when people used direct mail. And I got a data set, and I looked and looked and looked, and I could not find any patterns whatsoever. I think I peaked the area under curve at 57%.
Okay.
So it was awful. It was just awful. And I'd go back to the client and say, I can't get there from here. And what I found out was they had actually bought an external data set and tried to jam it onto the existing data set,
So
and they weren't
diluted
matching it properly.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
So it wasn't your failure. So it was there. They messed it up.
Well,
But you should have
but-
known.
but
You should have checked.
Well, and I shouldn't have spent so much time before being willing to go back to the client, because I spent a good 2 weeks like dying to find an answer.
That goes back to keeping them as an agile iterative process. All right.
No reveals.
No reveals. Ahmed Hassan
Yes.
says, generally, how important is it to annotate the Python code when you're solving a problem? Would it waste his effort if he comments non-relative comments between the codes?
Wow. Highly specific question. Good question. There is a big push, especially towards Agile, to go away from documentation pretty much as you can.
To go away from documentation?
Yes. That limited documentation. And that has been a very big push. I am not a very good developer, so I'm probably not the best person to answer that question.
No, wait. We found a question you can't answer?
Well, I made up all this. I mean, you know, what do I know? But I just walked in here. She was sitting by herself. She needed to have a LinkedIn thing, and I was like, hey!
You know, I think... Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, go for it.
So in terms of documenting the code, a lot of people actually get irritated if you over-document, which has actually been my tendency.
You tend to over-document.
I tend to over-document. But the reason why is it helps me to be able to go back to a project. So now what I've done is I've got Scott's set of code with all the documentation and the notes. And then I cut most of the notes out when I actually get it to the client. So it's basically just delete. I don't change any of the code. Don't do that.
Don't change the code.
Don't change the code.
Just change the comments. Clean them up maybe a little bit for the audience. Okay, yeah, that's good advice. Wow, good advice. I think on that note, we're going to stop here. Any last words?
Thank you for suffering through this. It's not Kate's fault. Really, it's not. It's my fault.
Like I said, this has been the most fun session, so thank you.
Oh, good. You're quite welcome.
I think you helped a lot of people. So thank you guys for tuning in, and this will be posted on YouTube's Story by Data channel. Yeah, all right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.